The prosecutor froze the wedding video on a close view of my mother's hand wrapped around a silver strip of tape. Behind her, my sister stood in her white dress with a confetti cannon angled toward my face. The jury could not yet hear what they had said to each other, but by then I knew every word. The prosecutor turned toward my mother and asked, "Why did Kelsey know to aim at her left eye?" Before I tell you how that question was finally answered, I hope you are doing well. And I invite you to stay with me until the end. And subscribe to the channel for more stories like mine. To explain what happened in that courtroom, I have to take you back to my sister's wedding on a rainy Saturday in April. At that point, everyone in the ballroom still believed they were about to watch a harmless joke. The afternoon light reflected off the conservatory windows and flashed against the glassware. White lilies filled the room with a sweet, heavy smell that mixed with hairspray and warm champagne. My left eye felt slightly dry beneath the chandeliers, a familiar irritation I had learned to manage years ago. I was 38, old enough to know that discomfort did not require an announcement. I slipped a small bottle of lubricating drops back into my purse and rejoined my friend Dana near the edge of the dance floor. "You good?" she asked. "I'm fine. The lights are stronger than I expected." Dana glanced toward my mother, who was moving guests around as though she had personally designed every photograph. "Constance has already relocated me twice. If she moves me again, I'm charging her." That made me smile. Dana had been my friend for 11 years and knew how to support me without taking over. I had come because Kelsey was my sister, not because I expected the wedding to repair our family. My mother had spent the morning telling everyone how grateful she was that her 2 daughters could put aside their old sensitivities for one beautiful day. That was her preferred language. Nothing in our family was cruelty, dishonesty, or favoritism. It was always sensitivity. Usually mine. Kelsey looked radiant in a fitted satin dress, and for a moment I let myself enjoy seeing her happy. She was 4 years younger than me, and had spent most of her life being told that rooms became brighter when she entered them. She believed it because our mother had repeated it often enough. Her new husband, Ryan, crossed the room between photographs to thank me for coming. "Kelsey was worried you might skip it," he said. "She invited me. I said I would be here." He gave me an uncertain smile, as if he had expected a more emotional answer. Still, it means a lot. Before I could respond, my mother called my name from beside the head table. "Meredith, stand over here. The photographer needs the immediate family." There was a narrow silver mark on the floor near the end of the table. It looked like a piece of tape used to position people beneath the lights. "Right on the mark," my mother said. She touched my elbow and shifted me 2 inches to the left. "Perfect. And please don't squint. Your face always looks tense when you squint." "The lights bother my eye." Her smile stayed fixed. "They always do when attention is on someone else." Dana heard her. I saw her take 1 step forward, but I shook my head once. I did not need a confrontation. I needed the photograph, finished. A man stood a few feet behind Kelsey with a compact camera and an external microphone. I had met him briefly at the rehearsal dinner. Elliot Vance was Ryan's uncle. His wife was in the hospital, recovering from surgery, and he was recording the ceremony and speeches so she could watch them later. "Pretend I'm not here," he said, checking the screen. "My wife wants everything, including the terrible dancing." Near him, 2 venue employees handed out small paper poppers for a group photograph. They repeatedly told guests to point them upward. The devices were light cardboard tubes decorated with pale ribbons. My mother did not take one from them. She reached beneath the head table and lifted a longer cannon with a strip of silver tape around its middle. It looked heavier than the others. "What's that one?" I asked. "The prettier version," she said. "The venues look cheap in pictures." One employee glanced over. "Mrs. Hale, is that one ours?" My mother turned her body, blocking the label. It was approved. The employee looked busy and uncertain. Before she could press the issue, the photographer called for the bridal party to move closer. Kelsey took the cannon from our mother. Her eyes moved briefly toward my face. "Still carrying drops for that eye?" she asked. "Yes." She laughed softly. "Just do not make everyone worry like you did when we were kids." I looked at her. "What is that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Today's supposed to be fun." My mother clapped her hands. "Everyone look this way." The photographer took several pictures as the band began playing. I thought the moment had passed. Then Kelsey called my name. I turned because her voice sounded cheerful, almost affectionate. She stood less than 3 feet away, holding the cannon across her waist. "Just one sister picture," she said. I saw the barrel rise. It did not point toward the ceiling. It leveled with my face. The release struck with a hard burst of pressure. Metallic confetti exploded across my left eye and cheek. The sound cracked beside my ear. My head snapped sideways, and the room vanished behind a sheet of white light. For 1 second, I could not understand what I was seeing. Then the pain arrived, deep and sharp. As if something had scraped inside my eye, the ballroom erupted in laughter. People clapped. Someone whistled. The band kept playing. I covered my left eye with one hand and bent forward, not from embarrassment, but to protect it from the lights. I could see vague shapes through my right eye. Through the left, there was only a milky brightness. Kelsey laughed with the guests. "Open your eye and stop embarrassing me," she snapped. Her fingers closed around my wrist. I caught her forearm with my free hand before she could pull mine away. "Do not touch my eye," I said. She tried again, harder. "Meredith, let go. You are making this look insane." I tightened my grip just enough to keep her hand away from my face. "Call emergency services." The laughter thinned. My mother pushed through the people nearest us. She did not ask whether I could see. She looked toward the photographer. "Keep filming," she said. "She is fine. Do not turn this into something." "I cannot see clearly," I told her. "You were blinking before Kelsey even fired it. I need medical help." My mother lowered her voice. "You will not destroy your sister's wedding over confetti." Dana reached me first. She moved between Kelsey and me, then looked directly at a server. "Call emergency services now," she said. "Tell them it is an eye injury from a projectile." That word changed the room. Projectile sounded less amusing than confetti. Ryan came over, his expression blank with confusion. "Kelsey said this was planned." "It was not planned with me," I said. He looked at my hand pressed over my eye, then at the foil stuck to my hair and dress. "I'm calling." My mother grabbed the cannon from Kelsey. Elliot's camera followed her for a second before turning back toward me. I did not see where she went with it. Later, I learned that he had watched her push it beneath folded linens on a service cart and wheel it toward the staff corridor. At the time, all I heard was her voice behind me. "She is doing it again," she told the guests. "Please give her space." The word again cut through the pain because it belonged to an older story. When I was 9, my left eye had been badly injured during a family event at Bright Steps, the child care center my parents owned. For nearly 30 years, my mother had insisted that I caused it during a tantrum. My father said he did not remember enough to take sides. Kelsey claimed she had been too young to know anything. I had stopped arguing about it long before her wedding. Arguing only gave my mother another opportunity to call me unstable. The paramedics arrived within minutes. I kept my hand cupped over the eye without applying pressure. When one of them asked whether I had rubbed it, I said no. When he asked what had hit me, I pointed toward Kelsey. "A compressed confetti cannon at close range," I said, directly into my left eye. My mother interrupted. "It was a party popper." The paramedic did not look at her. "Did you consent to it?" "No." That was the first question anyone had asked that required only the truth. Dana rode with me to the hospital. Ryan stayed behind, though he called twice before we arrived. Kelsey did not call at all. In the emergency department, a nurse lowered the lights and placed a shield over my eye. An ophthalmologist examined me after numbing drops reduced the surface pain. He found a large corneal abrasion, traumatic inflammation, a small amount of blood inside the eye, and signs that the retina had absorbed part of the impact. "Is the globe ruptured?" I asked. "No evidence of rupture," he said. "That is good. But this is not minor. Will the vision come back?" "I cannot promise you that tonight." Dana reached for my hand. I let her hold it. The doctor removed several pieces of metallic foil trapped beneath my eyelid. I asked the nurse not to discard them. "This may have been deliberate," I said. "Please document where each piece was found." She placed them in a labeled specimen container and noted the date and time. Later, a police evidence technician accepted the container through the hospital's transfer process. The doctor asked about prior damage to the eye. I told him the limited version I knew. I was injured when I was 9. My family said I did it to myself. He paused over the chart. Do you believe that? I do not know what I believe. I remember pain. I remember yellow fabric and the smell of heated plastic. I remember my mother telling people I was angry. The rest comes in pieces. He did not press me. He scheduled close follow-up, gave me written instructions, and warned me to return immediately if I saw flashes, a curtain in my vision, or a sudden increase in floaters. Before leaving, I requested copies of the discharge instructions, the visit number, and the contact information for medical records. I also asked Dana to photograph the bruising around my eye once we were somewhere with softer light. You are already thinking about proof, she said. I am thinking about what happens when my mother starts telling the story. She started before I made it home. The next morning, Kelsey's social media account posted a short wedding clip. It began after the cannon had fired. It showed me gripping her wrist while guests stepped backward. It did not show the barrel pointed at my face. It did not show her trying to pull my hand away. The caption said the bride had attempted a harmless prank, and her estranged sister had reacted aggressively because she could not tolerate being out of the spotlight. My phone filled with messages from relatives who had not come to the hospital. You should apologize. Kelsey only gets one wedding day. Why do you always make things harder for your mother? I did not answer them. I saved the clip, took screenshots of the caption and comments, and recorded the time it had been posted. Then I sent everything to an attorney Dana recommended. My father called that afternoon. Your mother is devastated, he said. I was the one in the emergency department. No one is denying you were hurt. Kelsey's post is denying it. He exhaled. She is trying to save her marriage. Ryan is asking questions. Just make one statement saying it was an accident. I do not know that it was. Meredith, please. Do not reopen childhood issues because of one bad decision. I looked at the bottle of medication beside me and the dark glasses I now needed inside my own home. I did not bring up childhood, I said. Kelsey aimed at the same eye. He went silent for a moment. Then he said, You do not know that. 3 days after the wedding, Elliot Vance called me. His voice was controlled, but not calm. I reviewed the footage for my wife, he said. There is something you need to hear. I sat at my kitchen table while Dana moved closer. What did you find? Before Kelsey fired, she asked which eye. Every muscle in my shoulders tightened. Elliot continued. Your mother answered her. What did she say? The same one. I could hear him breathing on the other end. There is more, he said. I saw your mother switch the cannon. And I saw where she hid it afterward. The venue manager sealed it that night. I'm going back there now. We're taking the cannon and my original footage to the police. Elliot did not ask me to trust him over the phone. He asked me to meet him somewhere the footage could be copied without altering the original. Dana drove me to the office of Natalie Brooks, the attorney she had recommended. The blinds were half closed because bright light still sent a sharp ache through my left eye. I wore dark glasses and kept my prescribed drops in my coat pocket. 3 days had passed since the wedding, but the skin around my eye had turned from red to purple, and every blink reminded me that the damage was not finished announcing itself. Natalie was in her early 40s, with a direct voice and a desk that held no family photographs. She had already reviewed my hospital discharge papers, the screenshots from Kelsey's post, and the messages my relatives had sent. Today is about preservation, she told me. Not confrontation, not public response. We keep the original file intact, make a verified copy, and let law enforcement decide what they need. Elliot arrived carrying his camera in a padded case and the memory card in a small plastic holder. The venue manager, Aaron Mills, came with him. Aaron carried a sealed paper evidence bag with a numbered strip across the opening. I stared at the shape inside it. Even through the bag, I recognized the length of the cannon and the silver tape wrapped around the middle. Elliot sat across from me and folded his hands. I need to tell you something before we watch this, he said. When Kelsey fired it, I laughed. Dana's expression hardened, but I waited. For maybe 2 seconds, he continued. Everyone else laughed, and I assumed it was staged. Then I saw your face. I saw the way you protected your eye, and I stopped. He did not tell me he was sorry, as though that should settle anything. He did not ask me to make him feel better. I watched the footage because my wife wanted to see the wedding, he said. When I heard what your mother said, I went back through every frame. I should have understood sooner. You understood when you had evidence, I said. Now, show me. Natalie brought in a digital evidence technician she regularly used in civil cases. He did not edit the recording. He created an exact copy of the memory card and generated what he called a digital fingerprint, a long identifying code that would change if anyone altered the file. The card stays untouched after this, Natalie explained. We view the copy. If we mark a time, increase the playback volume, or pause the image, the source remains exactly as Elliot recorded it. I appreciated that she explained the process without treating me as fragile. I did not need soothing. I needed to know the evidence would survive people who were already preparing to call it fake. The video began several minutes before the family photograph. Elliot's camera moved through the ballroom as he recorded greetings for his wife. The directional microphone picked up conversations close to him more clearly than the room behind them. I saw myself beside Dana, adjusting the drops in my purse. I looked ordinary, calm. I was not glaring at Kelsey or trying to draw attention. Then my mother entered the frame, carrying a narrow black bag. A venue employee offered her one of the pale cardboard poppers from a tray. My mother declined it. She turned away, opened the black bag, and removed the longer cannon wrapped in silver tape. Natalie paused the image. The venue's devices look different, she said. Aaron nodded. Ours were paper tubes with cream labels. Low-pressure indoor poppers. We inventoried everyone before and after the event. That is not one of them. We resumed the video. My mother placed the cannon beneath the head table, then moved me onto the small silver mark on the floor. From Elliot's angle, the mark was visible between my shoes. The microphone caught my mother saying, "Perfect." Kelsey entered the frame behind me. Her voice was softer than I remembered. Left eye? My mother answered without hesitation. The same one, she'll cover it. Pull her hand down so everyone sees her doing it again. The room around me disappeared. I heard the words a second time in my head, slower and clearer. The same one. Not whichever eye happened to be closest. Not an accidental direction. The eye they had spent nearly 30 years telling me I had injured myself. I reached toward the laptop, and Natalie paused the video before I touched it. I need a minute, I said. Dana lowered the screen brightness. She did not tell me to stop. Elliot looked down at his hands. My eye pulsed beneath the dark lens of my glasses. Behind the physical pain was something colder. I had spent years questioning whether my memory of childhood had been distorted by fear. My mother and sister had not questioned which eye had been hurt. They had discussed it like a target. I'm ready, I said. The video continued. Kelsey called my name. I turned. She raised the cannon, stepped closer, and aimed directly at my face. The discharge sounded harsher through Elliot's microphone than it had in my memory. The image shook as people around him laughed. I watched my own body fold forward. I saw my hand cover my eye. Kelsey reached for my wrist. Open your eye and stop embarrassing me. When I prevented her from pulling my hand away, my mother moved into the frame. Keep filming, she said. Get her reaction. Natalie marked the time. The official wedding clip had begun after that sentence. It had shown me holding Kelsey's wrist but removed the instruction that came before it. The full recording showed Ryan approaching in confusion. It showed Dana ordering someone to call emergency services. It showed my mother take the cannon from Kelsey and move away while everyone watched the paramedics enter. Elliot's camera followed her long enough to capture her, placing the cannon under folded linens on a service cart. She looked over both shoulders before pushing the cart into the staff hallway. There was no version of that action that looked innocent. Aaron explained what happened after I left. Elliot told me he had seen Mrs. Hale put something in the cart, he said. We went to the service hallway together. He photographed the cart from several angles before either of us moved anything. He showed us the photographs on his phone. The cannon lay beneath white napkins, its silver tape visible through the gap. I put on gloves, Aaron continued. I placed it in a clean paper bag, sealed it with one of our tamper strips, wrote the date and time, and signed across the seal. My assistant witnessed it. He opened a folder containing the venue's security log. The bag stayed in our locked security room. The hallway camera and access records show no one entered except me and the night supervisor. Neither of us opened the cabinet. That morning, Aaron and Elliot had removed the bag together, checked the seal number, signed another line on the log, and brought it directly to Natalie's office because Elliot wanted me to see that it existed before they took it to the police. Natalie did not let anyone open it. "We go to the station with it sealed," she said. Aaron explains how it was found and stored. Elliot provides the original recording device and memory card. Meredith gives permission for the detective to request the medical records relevant to this injury. An hour later, we sat in an interview room at the Henrico County Police Station. Detective Lena Ortiz was a compact woman with silver beginning at her temples. She listened without interrupting while Elliot described the camera, the microphone, and what he saw in the service hallway. Aaron handed her the sealed bag, the access log, and printed photographs of the cart. The detective checked the seal number before accepting it. "I want to be clear about what happens next," she said. "This is serious, but I am not arresting anyone today based on one recording and a sealed device we have not examined." My mother would later describe that delay as proof the police did not believe me. In reality, Detective Ortiz was doing exactly what I needed her to do. She asked for the hospital's evidence transfer information, the names of the doctors who treated me, and authorization to obtain records connected to the wedding injury. She wanted the venue's full camera files, the list of employees who handled the indoor poppers, the purchase source for the cannon, and separate interviews with Kelsey, my mother, my father, Ryan, Dana, and the photographer. She examined the evidence bag beneath the room light. Part of the silver tape covered the product label. "That could matter," she said. "It could also mean nothing. We verify before we interpret." I signed the medical authorization Natalie had reviewed. I did not give the detective unlimited access to every health record I had ever created. The release covered the emergency visit, follow-up treatment, and the documented condition of my left eye before the new injury. When we left the station, I felt no relief. Evidence did not restore my sight or erase the laughter from the ballroom. It did something more useful. It gave the truth a place outside my own memory. My family reacted before the police contacted them. A florist delivered white roses to my townhouse that afternoon. The card was written in my mother's rounded handwriting. "Meredith, I'm sorry your old injury and the shock of the moment made you misunderstand a harmless celebration. We love you and hope you recover from both the physical and emotional effects soon." She had written an apology that did not admit anyone had done anything. Douglas called from a number I did not recognize after I stopped answering his usual phone. "Your mother wants a private family meeting," he said. "No lawyers, no police, just the four of us and Ryan." "No. Meredith, do not make decisions while you are frightened. I have already made one. All communication about the incident goes through Natalie. You are treating your sister like a criminal." "I am treating the cannon like evidence." His voice tightened. "You are going to destroy Kelsey's marriage." Kelsey made her choices before I called a lawyer. I ended the call before he could turn my injury into another duty I had failed to perform. Kelsey sent a message that evening. "You took the cannon to the police? Ryan will never forgive me if you keep pushing this. You have already ruined the first week of my marriage." I took a screenshot and forwarded it to Natalie. Then I replied once. All further communication about the wedding incident must go through my attorney. I blocked her number after Natalie confirmed she had saved the message. I did not block Dana, Elliot, or Ryan. I accepted rides to appointments. I let Dana help organize the medication schedule when the print was difficult to read. Letting trustworthy people help me did not mean surrendering control. It meant refusing to waste strength proving I could suffer alone. At my follow-up appointment 2 days later, the ophthalmologist said the blood inside my eye was beginning to settle. The corneal abrasion was healing, but the retina, near the center of my vision, had taken a significant impact. "We will know more over the next several weeks," he said. "The fact that you can identify shapes is encouraging. The distortion and the pale area may improve. They may not disappear completely." I looked at the chart through my right eye. "When can I return to work?" "Not full-time yet. Limited screen use, no driving until the vision stabilizes, and no lifting that increases pressure in the eye." I accepted the restrictions. Ignoring them would not make me strong. It would only make recovery harder. Dana drove me home. We had barely entered my kitchen when Detective Ortiz called. "The venue confirmed the cannon was not part of its inventory," she said. The manufacturer identifies it as a high-pressure outdoor product. The warning under the silver tape says not to aim it at a person and to maintain a safe distance. I gripped the edge of the counter. Can you trace who bought it? We have a preliminary receipt. I cannot discuss every step until we verify the payment record. Was it Kelsey? There was a pause. The purchase was made more than a week before the wedding using a card connected to Hale Early Learning. Bright Steps. My mother's business. I thought of the medical record request I had mailed at the end of March. I had asked for the accident report from the day my first eye injury happened because my corneal specialist needed it. My mother had called 2 days later and accused me of dragging up stories that should have stayed buried. What date was the Canon purchased? I asked. April 2nd, Detective Ortiz said. My request had reached Bright Steps on March 31st. Whose name is on the order? This time, the detective answered without hesitation. Constance Hale. Detective Ortiz asked me to come back to the station the following morning and give a formal recorded statement. Natalie sat beside me while Dana waited outside with my medication and a pair of darker glasses. The interview room had no windows. That helped my eye, though the fluorescent panel above us still created a pale blur at the edge of my vision. Detective Ortiz placed a printed floor plan of the ballroom on the table and asked me to mark where everyone had stood. I drew a small circle near the head table. My mother moved me here, I said. There was a silver strip of tape on the floor. How far was Kelsey from you when she fired? About 3 feet, maybe slightly less. What direction was the cannon pointed? Level with my face, not upward. Did you see your mother give it to her? I saw my mother take it from beneath the table. I saw Kelsey holding it afterward. I did not see the exact handoff. Detective Ortiz nodded and wrote that down. She asked who tried to touch me after the discharge. I explained that Kelsey grabbed my wrist and attempted to pull my hand away from my eye. I explained that my mother took the cannon and moved toward the service hallway. Then the detective asked about my original injury. I was 9, I said. It happened during an open house at Bright Steps. My parents said I picked up a party launcher during a tantrum and fired it into my own face. Do you remember doing that? No. Do you remember your sister holding it? I remember her near me. I remember yellow fabric, the smell of heated plastic, and my mother shouting before the ambulance arrived. I cannot honestly say I remember whose hands were on the device. Natalie had advised me not to treat uncertainty as a weakness. A person inventing a story usually filled every gap. I had gaps because I had been 9, injured, frightened, and repeatedly told that my own version of events was wrong. I believe my family lied about something, I said. But I cannot tell you exactly what happened based on memory alone. Detective Ortiz looked at me for a moment before closing the notebook. That distinction matters, she said. After my statement, she explained that investigators had interviewed Kelsey, my mother, and my father separately. Their stories did not match. Kelsey claimed a venue employee had handed her the silver-wrapped cannon immediately before the photograph. She said she assumed it was the same as the other poppers and had no idea it was an outdoor product. My mother said the cannon had been left anonymously with the wedding gifts. According to her, she picked it up only after Kelsey fired it. My father said he never saw my mother touch the cannon at all. He claimed he had been speaking with relatives on the opposite side of the ballroom. The venue footage contradicted each version. A camera near the bridal suite showed my mother entering with the narrow black bag almost 2 hours before the photograph. Another camera showed my father beside her when she placed the bag beneath the head table. He looked directly at it while she adjusted the tablecloth. Aaron's inventory proved no employee had distributed the cannon. The receipt showed my mother had ordered it using a card belonging to Hale Early Learning. 3 people had been interviewed separately, yet all 3 had chosen different lies. What happens now? I asked. We continue verifying the purchase and communications, Detective Ortiz said. We have requested preservation of the relevant phone and provider data. I cannot promise what will be recoverable. Will they know you are checking their phones? They know they are under investigation. Do not contact them to discuss evidence. I have no intention of doing that. That afternoon, Kelsey posted a longer statement online. Dana read it aloud because looking at my phone for more than a few minutes made the letters ripple. Kelsey wrote that she regretted a harmless wedding joke had caused me temporary discomfort. She said I had suffered from an unhealthy fixation on my left eye since childhood and had always used medical issues to redirect family attention toward myself. She included 3 old photographs. One showed me wearing an eye patch after the childhood injury. One showed me leaving her high school graduation early because I had a migraine. The third showed me sitting apart from everyone at our mother's 50th birthday dinner. There was no context beneath any of them. She did not mention that I had left her graduation after vomiting in the restroom. She did not mention that my mother had seated me away from the family at her birthday because I refused to lend Kelsey money. The post ended with a request for privacy and healing. My relatives began sharing it. An aunt sent me a message saying I needed to stop punishing Kelsey for being happier than I was. A cousin told me everyone remembered how dramatic I had been as a child. Another relative said my mother had spent decades protecting me from my own worst impulses. Dana set my phone face down on the table. I want to answer them, she said. Every one of them. So do I. We have the full video. We do, but the police have it now. I am not going to turn an active investigation into a family argument online. Dana paced once across my kitchen. They are defining you while you stay quiet. They are creating evidence while I stay quiet. That stopped her. I saved screenshots of the post, the comments, the shares, and the timestamps. Natalie sent Kelsey and her attorney a written notice to preserve the original video, every edited version, the account data, and all communications relating to the post. She also sent a separate letter to my parents and Hale Early Learning. It demanded that they preserve business records, purchase receipts, internal messages, security data, insurance files, and any documents connected to my childhood injury. This does not force them to hand everything over today, Natalie explained. It tells them destruction is no longer innocent. 2 days later, Detective Ortiz called. Investigators had obtained lawful access to a preserved set of messages exchanged shortly before the photograph. She could not send me copies yet, but she read 3 lines because they directly affected my safety and the investigation. My mother had written, "Make sure she is standing on the mark." Kelsey replied, "What if she does not react?" My mother answered, "She will. Use the same eye." I sat very still while Natalie wrote down the exact wording. The messages had been sent minutes before Kelsey fired. There was no longer any reasonable claim that she had selected my eye by chance. There was no longer any claim that my mother had only touched the cannon afterward. "What did Kelsey say when you showed her?" I asked. "I cannot discuss her interview," Detective Ortiz said. "But I can tell you the investigation has expanded beyond an accidental injury." The phrase was cautious. Its meaning was not. That evening, Ryan asked to meet me. Natalie suggested we use her conference room. Dana came with me and sat near the door. Ryan arrived without Kelsey and looked as though he had not slept. His wedding ring was still on his hand. "I did not know about the cannon," he said before he sat down. Natalie placed a recorder on the table after receiving everyone's consent. "Tell Meredith only what you personally saw or heard," she said. Ryan nodded. "About a week before the wedding, Kelsey told me your mother needed you to make a scene before the sale closed." "What sale?" I asked. "She said Bright Steps was being sold. I thought it was family business drama. She made it sound like you had threatened to embarrass your mother in front of the buyer." "I did not even know there was a buyer." "I know that now." "What exactly did Kelsey say?" Ryan rubbed both hands across his face. "She said, Mom needs Meredith to show everyone who she really is before the sale closes." I asked what that meant. "Kelsey said your mother was afraid you would reopen some childhood accusation and try to destroy the business." "Did she say they planned to hurt me?" "No." "Did she say they planned the cannon?" "No." "Did she know my mother bought it?" "I do not know." "Did she know it was high pressure?" "I do not know." "Did she tell you why they chose my left eye?" Ryan's expression tightened. I said I do not know. I heard the sharpness in my own voice. I was no longer asking him what he knew. I was pressing him to fill the spaces that frightened me. I stopped. "You are right," I said. "Let me ask this differently. What can you prove?" Ryan took out his phone. He had saved messages from Kelsey because they were arguing about money for a house. Constance had promised to give them $200,000 toward a down payment after the Bright Steps sale closed. One message from Kelsey said, "Mom cannot have Meredith making accusations before the buyer signs." Another said, "Once the wedding is over and everyone sees what she is like, this problem goes away." Ryan forwarded the messages to Natalie. I thought Kelsey meant your mother wanted witnesses if you caused trouble, he said. I did not think they planned to provoke you. What do you think now? Dana asked. Ryan looked toward the recorder. I think my wife knew more than she has admitted. He did not announce a divorce. He did not remove his ring or declare that his marriage had ended. He said he had moved into a hotel while he tried to understand what had happened. I asked Kelsey to give me her phone, he said. She refused. Then she accused me of choosing you over her. She will call every question a betrayal, I said. That does not mean you should stop asking. After Ryan left, Natalie showed me what she had found about Bright Steps. The business was legally owned by Hale Early Learning, a limited liability company controlled by my mother and father. Public filings showed a pending sale to a regional childcare operator. The proposed price was $3.8 million, subject to financial review, licensing confirmation, and warranties about undisclosed claims. Natalie had obtained a draft of the asset purchase agreement from the buyer's attorney after disclosing that I had a potential claim involving an incident at the center. One paragraph mattered more than the rest. The seller represented that Hale Early Learning had never concealed a reportable child injury or commercial insurance claim arising from licensed operations. My childhood injury had occurred during a family open house in 1994. Bright Steps had been open, parents and enrolled children were present, and the party supplies had been purchased through the center. If my mother had falsely described the accident to protect the license or an insurance claim, the warranty in the sale agreement could be false. I stared at the document. I did not request my old records because of this sale. I know, Natalie said. My corneal specialist had recommended evaluating a procedure to smooth the old scar because I had developed recurrent corneal erosion, glare, and increasing discomfort. He wanted the earliest available records before deciding whether the procedure was appropriate. I mailed the request on March 31st. My mother purchased the outdoor Canon on April 2nd. She called me that evening and demanded to know why I was digging up lies before Kelsey's wedding. At the time, I assumed she was angry because she hated being questioned. Now there was another explanation. My medical request had warned her that the original records might resurface while she was promising a buyer no serious injury had ever been concealed. She had needed a new story before anyone found the old one. Not simply that I was mistaken, that I was obsessed, jealous, unstable, and willing to manufacture an injury at my sister's wedding to attack the family business. The Canon had not been the entire plan. My public reaction was the product they wanted. Natalie turned the draft agreement toward me and tapped the disclosure paragraph. This is why the timing matters, she said. The buyer was preparing to rely on this representation. My mother had signed beneath it. I read the sentence again. No concealed reportable child injury. For nearly 30 years, my family had treated the first injury to my eye as a closed story. At Kelsey's wedding, they had tried to use the same eye to write a second ending. Instead, they had connected the two events. And if the truth about what happened when I was 9 could be proven, it would not only destroy their defense for the wedding attack, it could expose the lie my mother had built a multi-million-dollar sale upon. The first clear piece of my childhood did not return while I was studying an old photograph or reading a forgotten record. It came back during an eye examination, triggered by the smell of heated plastic. My ophthalmologist had placed a thin protective shield over the equipment before checking the damaged area of my retina. Under the examination lamp, the plastic warmed slightly and released a sharp chemical odor. My body reacted before I understood why. My shoulders locked. My right hand tightened around the edge of the chair. For a moment, the white wall beside me seemed covered in yellow fabric. I saw a small hand gripping a red tube. I heard my mother say, "Put it down." Then the image broke apart. The doctor moved the equipment away. "Are you in pain?" "Not from what you just did." I closed my right eye and tried to hold on to the details without forcing them into a complete story. Yellow cloth. A child's hand. A red launcher. My mother's voice. I did not know whether the hand belonged to Kelsey. I did not know whether the yellow cloth had been a table covering, a dress, or something my mind had borrowed from another day. I took out my phone and dictated the memory, while the time and date could still be attached to it. The doctor waited until I finished. "Memories can surface after a new injury resembles an old one," he said. "That does not make every detail accurate or inaccurate. It only means your brain recognized something. I thanked him for not telling me what the memory proved. When Dana picked me up, I played the recording for her in the parking lot. She listened twice. "You sound certain about the smell," she said. "I am certain I smelled heated plastic today. I am certain it reminded me of yellow fabric and a small hand. That is all." "That is enough for a note. It is not enough for an accusation." Dana started the car. "Then treat it as a direction, not a verdict." That afternoon, Natalie helped me build a list of evidence that did not depend on remembering more. We sat in her conference room with a blank legal pad between us. She divided the page into separate sources: photographs from the family open house, the Bright Steps accident log, the commercial insurance claim, the first medical report, employees who had been present, financial records connected to Elaine Porter, the young childcare worker who left shortly after the accident. Anything my father had kept. I wanted to contact every person and request every record that same day. Natalie stopped me before urgency turned into carelessness. "Some sources can disappear faster than others," she said. "We protect those first. The accident happened almost 30 years ago. If something survived this long, another week should not matter. Unless someone now understands why it matters." She circled Bright Steps, my parents' storage records, and Elaine's name. "We already sent the preservation notices," she continued. "Now we work through lawful requests and voluntary witnesses. You do not go to the center. You do not enter your parents' home. You do not contact former employees while angry." I was not planning to break into anything. "I know. I am telling you because people under pressure often convince themselves that one shortcut is justified." I looked at the list again. "Where do we start?" "With the source that cannot alter itself." The photograph came from one of my mother's older sisters. She had not attended Kelsey's wedding because of health problems, and unlike most relatives, she had not shared Kelsey's social media post. When Natalie asked whether she still had pictures from the Bright Steps open house, she searched through several storage boxes and found an album. She allowed a professional service to scan the relevant pages. One image showed the main activity room at Bright Steps in 1994. Yellow paper covered a long folding table. Children stood around a sheet cake, while adults gathered behind them. I was on the far side of the table, reaching toward a stack of paper plates with my right hand. Kelsey stood closer to the camera. Behind her left leg was a red party launcher. The photograph did not show her holding it. It did not show anyone firing it. It did not prove what happened, seconds or minutes later. But it placed the object beside Kelsey, not me. Natalie enlarged the image without changing its content. "The injury entered the outer side of your left eye," she said. "Your mother's insurance statement says you held the launcher in your right hand and pointed it toward yourself. That would have required me to turn the opening across my face. We will let a qualified expert evaluate the angle. We do not make the photograph say more than it says." I nodded, though part of me wanted the image to speak with absolute certainty. The yellow table covering matched the fragment that had returned in the doctor's office. That made the memory feel more credible to me. It did not make it admissible proof of who fired the launcher. I wrote another dated note describing what I recognized and what remained uncertain. The next source was more difficult. Elaine Porter had been 24 when she worked at Bright Steps. Public records showed that she moved away from Virginia less than a month after my injury. A financial ledger from the company listed a payment to her that was several times larger than her regular paycheck. My mother had labeled it final compensation. To me, it looked like hush money. Elaine refused Natalie's first request for an interview. She ignored the second. After Natalie sent a letter explaining that we were not accusing her of wrongdoing and would meet with her attorney present if she wished, Elaine called. She agreed to speak at Natalie's office. By then, Elaine was in her 50s. She arrived carrying a flat document envelope against her chest. She looked at the shield over my eye and then quickly looked away. "I am not getting involved in your mother's business again," she said before sitting down. "You are already involved in my memory of it," I replied. Natalie gave me a brief glance. I had spoken too sharply, but Elaine did not leave. "I was barely older than a child myself," she said. "Your mother owned the center. Your father handled the money. They could have ruined me. What did they pay you for?" Elaine's hands tightened around the envelope. I knew this would look bad. "It does." Natalie stepped in before I turned the meeting into an interrogation. "Elaine, we are asking what the payment represented. Please explain in your own words." Elaine took out a settlement agreement dated 12 days after my injury. The amount was not payment for silence about the accident. At least, not directly. Constance had withheld months of overtime, required Elaine to work unpaid opening shifts, and deducted money from her wages for alleged damage to classroom supplies. After the accident, Elaine threatened to report the wage violations. My mother agreed to pay what she owed, plus a small severance, only if Elaine resigned immediately and signed a broad agreement not to make statements that harmed the center's reputation. I needed the money, Elaine said. My rent was late. She told me if I refused, she would report that I had abandoned my classroom during an emergency. Had you? I asked. No, I was in the activity room when it happened. The payment had made her look purchased, because my mother had used a real wage dispute to remove a witness. Elaine had accepted money she was already owed, then left before Constance could destroy her employment record. I felt some of my suspicion shift into shame. I assumed you helped them hide it, I said. I helped myself leave, she answered. I have felt guilty about that for years. But I did not change the report. She opened the document envelope and removed a folded photocopy. I copied this before I returned my keys. The page came from the Bright Steps accident log. The writing was faint, but the date matched the day of my injury. The original entry contained 3 short lines. Kelsey holding launcher near celebration table. Discharge struck Meredith's left eye. Mother, present. There was no mention of a tantrum. No claim that I held the launcher. No statement that I fired it at myself. Natalie placed the copy inside a clear sleeve. How do you know this was the original entry? She asked. I wrote the first line, Elaine said. Another employee added the second after the ambulance was called. Constance told us to leave the page on her desk. A newer copy produced from the Bright Steps records used the same date and page number. The handwriting was different. Meredith became upset during celebration, seized launcher, and discharged device toward her own face, despite staff instruction. The second version also said I had a history of attention-seeking behavior. I was 9 years old. My mother had not merely repeated a misunderstanding. Someone had replaced the account written at the scene with a story that protected the center and blamed an injured child. Did you see Kelsey fire it? I asked. Elaine shook her head. I saw it in her hands. Then another child knocked a tray from the table. I turned toward the noise. I heard the launcher and saw you fall. Did you see it in my hands at any point? No. Did my mother? She was standing beside Kelsey. What did she say? Elaine looked at Natalie, then back at me. Before the ambulance even arrived, your mother told everyone you had done it to yourself. The words settled heavily between us. She said you were jealous because the open house display featured Kelsey's classroom. She told parents you had thrown a tantrum, grabbed the launcher, and caused the accident. Was I having a tantrum? You were helping set out plates. Was I arguing with Kelsey? Not that I saw. Did Kelsey say anything? She was crying. She kept saying she had not meant to do it. My breath caught, but I forced myself to remain with the exact language. What were her words? Elaine closed her eyes as if replaying them. She said, I didn't mean to hit her. Constance pulled her away before anyone could ask what she meant. That was not a confession detailed enough to solve the whole event. A frightened 5-year-old could have meant many things, but it did not fit the story my family had repeated. What did my father do? I asked. He came in from the office after the ambulance had been called. Constance spoke to him privately. Then he picked up the launcher using a towel and carried it outside. Did he give it to the police? There were no police. It was reported as an accident. Did he give it to the paramedics? No. Did anyone photograph it? Your father told us no photographs were allowed because children were present. The launcher disappeared before an outside investigator could examine it. Elaine looked down at the old log copy. That night, I went back to collect my purse. Your father was alone in the office. He was writing a letter. To whom? Your name was on the envelope. I leaned forward. What did it say? I never read it. He sealed it before I left. What did he do with it? Elaine described a gray metal document box kept inside the locked storage cabinet behind my mother's desk. Douglas placed the envelope inside it, with the original insurance papers. He said he would tell you when you were old enough to understand why they had made their decision. What decision? He would not explain. Natalie asked whether Elaine had ever seen the box again. Once, she said, the week I left. Constance was sorting documents from the accident. The box was still there. Bright Steps had changed offices twice since 1994, but the company still existed. Its records had been moved, stored, and reviewed for the pending sale. If the metal box had survived, it was now subject to the preservation notice Natalie had already sent. I wanted to call my father immediately and demand the letter. Natalie refused to let the meeting end with an impulsive confrontation. We request it formally, she said. If Douglas produces it, the chain is clean. If he denies it exists and it later appears, that denial matters. Elaine signed a statement limited to what she had personally seen, written, and heard. She provided the settlement agreement and allowed Natalie to scan the log copy while preserving the original. Before leaving, she stopped beside me. I should have found you when you were older, she said. Yes, I replied. Her face tightened. I could have softened the answer to relieve her. I chose not to lie. But you came now, I added. That matters too. After she left, I placed the childhood photograph beside the two versions of the accident log. The picture showed Kelsey beside the launcher. The first log showed her holding it. Elaine remembered her saying she had not meant to hit me. My mother had announced that I caused the injury before a doctor examined me. My father had removed the device and written a letter he never delivered. No single piece proved everything. Together, they showed that the official story had not grown from my confused memory. It had been constructed around me while I was being taken to the hospital. Natalie drafted a formal demand that afternoon requiring Hale Early Learning and my parents to identify and preserve the gray metal box, the original insurance file, and every personal document concerning my injury. Douglas responded through an attorney the next morning. He did not say the letter had never existed. He said he could not remember whether the box still did. That careful wording frightened me more than a direct denial. Elaine had seen my name on the envelope. My father had written it before decades of excuses taught him how to avoid the truth. If the box still existed, the letter inside might contain the only version of that night Douglas recorded before deciding that protecting our family meant sacrificing me. My father's attorney responded to Natalie's second request with a sentence so carefully written that it revealed more than a direct refusal would have. Douglas Hale did not recall the present location of the gray document box described by Elaine Porter. He did not say the box had never existed. He did not say the letter had never existed. He only claimed he could not remember where either one was now. Natalie read the sentence twice, then placed the letter beside the preservation notice. Yesterday he said he could not remember whether the box still existed, she said. Today he cannot remember its present location. He is narrowing his denial. He is trying to avoid making a statement that can be disproved later. My first impulse was to call him and force him to answer, without an attorney translating his fear into cautious language. I knew how that conversation would go. Douglas would ask me to calm down. He would say legal action made people defensive. Then he would tell me the truth was complicated and ask why I needed to hurt everyone by simplifying it. I did not call. Natalie filed the first civil complaint connected to the wedding injury and served formal requests for records. The suit did not claim we had already proven every detail from 1994. It addressed what could be documented in the present. The planned attack at the wedding, the physical injury, the edited video, the public accusations, and the destruction those actions had caused. The older records mattered because they could establish motive, knowledge, and why my mother selected the same eye. We requested the metal box, the insurance file, internal Bright Steps communications, purchase records, and family emails concerning the first injury. 3 days later, a forensic review of an old family email account produced a result none of us expected. The account had once been used by my parents for Bright Steps and household matters. Most of its recent contents had been transferred to newer systems, but a backup service retained older folders. The messages came through the provider in response to a lawful request and were delivered with account records showing when they had been sent. Natalie called me into her office before showing me the relevant exchange. "This is from 8 years ago," she said. Kelsey would have been 26. I removed my dark glasses because the blinds were closed and enlarged the text on the monitor. The first email was from Kelsey to our father. Dad, I found the old claim paperwork in Mom's office while looking for the building appraisal. It does not say Meredith grabbed the launcher. It says that is what Mom reported afterward. There is also an older accident log naming me. The next line was harder to read than anything my injured eye had placed in front of me. Did I do it? Douglas answered the next morning. You were 5. There is no value in assigning blame to a child for an accident no one can change. Kelsey wrote again. That is not what I asked. Did Meredith do it to herself? My father waited nearly a day before replying. Your mother believes bringing this up would destroy bright steps and reopen wounds Meredith barely remembers anyway. Leave the past where it is. I read the final sentence several times. Meredith barely remembers anyway. That was how they had measured the value of telling me the truth. Not by whether I deserved it. Not by whether the accusation had shaped my entire place in the family. They had decided the lie could remain because my memory was incomplete enough to resist it poorly. Kelsey's last email contained only one line, so she did not do it. Douglas never answered. I leaned away from the monitor. She knew, I said. Natalie nodded. At least by this exchange. She had enough information to know the family story was false or seriously misleading. She was 26. Yes. She asked him directly. Yes. And then 8 years later she pointed another cannon at the same eye. Natalie did not soften the conclusion. That is what the current evidence indicates. Until that moment, some part of me had continued to divide Kelsey into two people. There was the frightened 5-year-old who might have caused an accident without understanding it. Then there was the adult bride who had been manipulated by a controlling mother. The email destroyed the distance between them. Kelsey had been given the chance to question the lie as an adult. She had found the records herself. She had asked the correct question. When our father refused to answer plainly, she understood what his silence meant. Then she chose the version of the past that continued to benefit her. Ryan came to Natalie's office the next afternoon. He had already received the email through his own attorney because it concerned Kelsey and the wedding investigation. He looked exhausted. His ring was still on his hand, but he kept turning it around his finger. I confronted her, he said. Natalie obtained his permission before recording the meeting. What did she say? I asked. She admitted she found the old claim 8 years ago. Did she admit she knew I had been blamed falsely? Ryan hesitated. She said she knew the official version was probably not true. Probably. Those were her words. What did she think happened? She said she assumed she fired the launcher when she was 5, but she did not remember it clearly. And that did not stop her from doing it again? Ryan pressed his palms against the table. She said the wedding cannon was not supposed to seriously injure you. What was it supposed to do? She said your mother wanted to frighten you into reacting in front of the cameras. By aiming at an already injured eye? She claimed she thought it would sting, make you cry, and prove you were willing to ruin her wedding. That answer makes no sense. I know. Did she know it was an outdoor cannon? She said she did not read the label. The label was covered. She said your mother handed it to her already taped. Did she know my mother bought it? She said she suspected it, but never asked. Did she know they were going to edit the video? Ryan's expression changed. She said the photographer was supposed to capture what happened after you reacted. She did not know your uncle's camera was recording continuously. I continued asking questions. What time had Kelsey spoken with Constance? Where had they stood? Had she seen the black bag? Had she discussed the $200,000? Had she agreed on the wording of the social media post before the wedding? Ryan answered what he could. When he said he did not know, I asked again from another direction. Finally, he looked at Natalie rather than me. I came here to provide what she told me, but this feels like I am being cross-examined for marrying her. You brought information that affects a criminal investigation, I said. Details matter. They do, but I cannot produce answers Kelsey did not give me. His frustration was justified. I had stopped listening for what he knew and begun punishing him for what Kelsey had withheld. I ended the questions. After Ryan left, Dana remained in the conference room while Natalie took a call. You were hard on him, she said. He defended her after the wedding. He defended what he thought was a bad joke before he saw the evidence. Then he moved out, preserved his messages, and came here. That does not make him innocent of every choice. No, but he is not Kelsey. I knew that. My anger had flattened every person around the lie into another obstacle. I am not apologizing for asking direct questions, I said. I did not ask you to. I am telling you that if everyone feels like a defendant when they speak to you, some will start answering to protect themselves instead of helping you. That evening, I sent Ryan a message through Natalie. I was entitled to ask what Kelsey told you, but my tone treated you as though you had designed the plan. You did not. Please continue giving Natalie only what you directly saw, heard, or received. I will not ask you to fill gaps you cannot fill. He replied an hour later. Understood. I will send the remaining messages tomorrow. It was not reconciliation or friendship. It was a correction in strategy. My next eye examination gave me a different kind of certainty. The swelling had decreased enough for more accurate visual field testing. I sat with my chin supported, while small points of light appeared against a dark background. I pressed the button whenever I saw one. Several lights near the center left never appeared. Afterward, the specialist displayed the results. The overall acuity is improving, he said. The cornea is healing, and the blood inside the eye has largely cleared. But there is a small paracentral defect consistent with the retinal impact. At this stage, I expect some portion of it to remain permanent. I stared at the dark cluster on the chart. Will I be able to work? Yes, with adjustments. Reduced glare, larger text, scheduled breaks, and limited screen exposure at first. You should regain functional vision, but low light contrast and bright environments may continue to be difficult. Will I be able to drive? Possibly, once we confirm stability and you adapt. Not yet. The result was neither the catastrophe my mother would accuse me of exaggerating, nor the temporary discomfort Kelsey had described online. I would keep most of my sight. I would also carry a small missing area inside it for the rest of my life. A week later, my parents sent an unofficial settlement proposal through their personal attorney. They offered to pay my current medical bills and 3 months of lost income. In return, I would agree that the wedding incident had been accidental, withdraw my civil claim, stop cooperating with any licensing complaint, and make no further statement about the childhood injury. The letter described the offer as a compassionate family resolution. Natalie placed it on the table. This would not cover future monitoring, reduced work capacity, additional treatment, or the permanent visual defect, she said. It would also require me to lie. Yes. Then the answer is no. You are allowed to consider the money without accepting the language. I am considering the money. It is not enough. I did not reject compensation because I wanted to prove I was morally superior. My health would require follow-up care for years. My work schedule had already been reduced. I had legal expenses and a permanent injury created by 2 adults who knew exactly which eye they were targeting. I would not absorb those costs to make my family more comfortable. Natalie rejected the proposal and stated that any future discussion had to include full compensation without false admissions or interference with law enforcement. The next consequence arrived from outside our lawsuit. The company purchasing Bright Steps suspended the closing. Its attorney cited the criminal investigation, the disputed accident history, a possible breach of the seller's disclosure warranties, and a material adverse event affecting licensing and liability. The buyer did not close the center. It did not fire the employees. It placed the transaction on hold while conducting additional review. My mother told the family something else. According to the messages I received, I had deliberately sabotaged a business that supported dozens of workers and served more than 100 children. Relatives said I was destroying innocent families because I wanted revenge for Kelsey's wedding. Natalie issued one short statement on my behalf. Meredith Hale did not request the closure of Bright Steps or the termination of any employee. Decisions concerning the pending transaction and licensing review belong to the buyer and the appropriate authorities. Those decisions arose from evidence and representations made by the owners of Hale Early Learning. I did not add anything online. The sale had not stopped because I remembered too much. It had stopped because my mother had signed a contract saying no serious childcare injury had been concealed while evidence suggested the opposite. Ryan returned to the house he shared with Kelsey one final time to collect documents and clothing. He later told us Kelsey had been crying when he arrived, but not because she had suddenly understood what she did to me. She was frightened that Constance would blame everything on her. My mother said she only bought the cannon because I wanted a prank, Kelsey told him. Now she says I aimed it on my own. Ryan reminded her that Constance had selected the I in the text messages. Kelsey said she had found another message on a shared device. It had been sent before the wedding to a family advisor who was not acting as Constance's attorney. If Kelsey takes the prank too far, she is an adult. She acted on her own. Kelsey finally understood that our mother had planned 2 stories. The first story would destroy me if the plan succeeded. I would become the unstable sister who staged an injury to ruin a wedding and threaten a business sale. The second story would destroy Kelsey if the plan failed. She would become the reckless adult daughter who acted without instruction. Constance had protected herself in both versions. Kelsey hired separate criminal counsel. Through that attorney, she requested a meeting with the prosecutor and submitted a new recorded statement. She admitted our mother purchased the cannon and instructed her to target my left eye. She admitted she understood the purpose was to provoke a public reaction. She also admitted she made the final choice to raise the cannon, aim it, and fire. Her statement did not excuse her. It removed the last excuse she had been using. Near the end, Kelsey's attorney asked whether she had anything else relevant to disclose. Kelsey's voice became quieter on the recording. Mom didn't just plan what I should do to Meredith, she said. She planned what she would say if I got caught. Kelsey's recorded statement did not immediately become a deal with the prosecutor. It was only the beginning of a process she could no longer control. Her attorney had asked for a formal meeting where she could explain what she knew before deciding whether to accept responsibility and cooperate against our mother. I was not invited. Natalie reminded me that being the victim did not give me access to every conversation inside an active criminal case. That frustrated me, but it also protected the case from becoming something my family could dismiss as my private revenge campaign. Before that meeting took place, the gray metal box finally surfaced. Bright Steps produced it after a court order required the company to turn over specific, non-testimonial business records. A records contractor found it in a locked storage area behind several boxes from an older office. Someone had recently moved it from a shelf listed in the center's inventory, but the contractor did not speculate about who had done it. The box arrived at Natalie's office, sealed inside a larger evidence container. Neither of us opened it. A representative from the records company documented the exterior, the lock, and every person present before transferring it to the attorneys handling the civil case. Inside were old insurance summaries, receipts, photographs, payroll records, and an envelope with my childhood name written across the front in my father's handwriting. Meredith Ann Hale. The envelope had never been mailed. Natalie photographed it before removing the letter. The paper had yellowed at the folds. The ink had faded in places, but the words were still readable. My father had dated it 4 days after the first injury to my eye. Dear Meredith, you are too young to understand what happened, and I am too ashamed to explain it to you now. Kelsey was holding the launcher when it discharged. Your mother was standing beside her. You did not take it from the table, and you did not point it at yourself. I stopped reading. Natalie waited. Dana sat beside me, silent. I continued. Your mother believes that if the truth is reported, Bright Steps could lose its license, and our insurer could refuse the claim. She says we could lose the center and the house. She believes blaming you is the only way to protect Kelsey and preserve what we built. I know this is wrong. I removed the launcher from the building and disposed of it before anyone outside the family could examine it. I signed the account your mother prepared. I told myself I was protecting both of you, but I know one daughter is being protected at the expense of the other. You deserve the truth when you are older. I hope someday I will have the courage to give you this letter. Dad. I reached the bottom without crying. For years, I had imagined that proof would bring relief. I thought seeing the truth in my father's handwriting might release something that had remained trapped inside me since childhood. Instead, I felt anger with edges sharper than grief. Douglas had known I was innocent 4 days after the accident. He had written the truth clearly enough to understand every choice he was making. Then he had folded it, placed it inside a metal box, and spent almost 3 decades telling me he did not remember. He wrote that I deserved the truth when I was older, I said. Dana's voice was quiet. You were older every day after he wrote it. That was what hurt. The letter did not show a man who had never understood. It showed a man who understood immediately, documented his own failure, and then renewed it every time he chose not to give me the page. Natalie read the letter again, concentrating on the facts rather than the apology surrounding them. "It confirms Kelsey held the launcher," she said. "It confirms Constance created the false account, and it confirms Douglas removed the device and signed the claim. He admitted destroying the evidence." "Yes. Can they prosecute him for something he did in 1994? "That depends on several legal questions we are not going to answer from this room. The most immediate value is what the letter proves about knowledge, motive, and the origin of the false family story." I looked through the remaining documents. An insurance claim summary said the injury occurred after I became emotionally disruptive during a licensed family event. The description relied on a statement provided by Constance. It did not contain an independent finding that I had fired the launcher. The accident ledger contained the rewritten version Elaine had described. The handwriting differed from her original copy, but I left that comparison to qualified examiners. A receipt showed Bright Steps had purchased a case of promotional launchers for the open house through its business account. The model was no longer manufactured. I wanted to know where Douglas had taken the launcher after the accident. Had he thrown it into a commercial dumpster? Had he driven home with it in his trunk? Had Constance watched him destroy it? Had anyone else seen him leave? The letter said only that he had disposed of it. "I need to ask him where," I said. "You may never receive a reliable answer," Natalie replied. "He wrote the letter 4 days afterward. He knew where he put it." "Then, not necessarily now. He could still tell us what Constance said before they changed the report." "He could. He might lie. He might claim he cannot remember. He might describe a conversation that no longer has independent support." I pushed the letter away from me. "So I am supposed to accept that we may never know everything?" "You are supposed to decide whether an unanswered question prevents you from acting on what is already proven." The distinction irritated me because it was correct. I had spent years believing that if I could reconstruct every second of the childhood accident, I would finally earn the right to trust myself. The new evidence showed I had been asking for more certainty than any honest investigation could provide. I did not know exactly how Kelsey's fingers had rested on the launcher. I did not know whether Constance told Douglas to destroy it in the office, in the parking lot, or at home. I knew Kelsey had held it. I knew I had not fired it at myself. I knew Constance had created the lie. I knew Douglas had removed the device and signed the false account. For the current attack, we had a canon, a receipt, a continuous recording, medical evidence, text messages, and witnesses. The missing pieces of 1994 mattered. They did not have the right to freeze every decision I made in the present. "We keep looking through lawful sources," I said. "But we do not make the current case wait for a perfect reconstruction." Natalie nodded. "That is the right distinction." The other records inside the box created a timeline that matched Elaine's documents without preserving an impossibly complete archive. The insurance company no longer had the full claim file. Its successor maintained only a microfilm summary and payment record. Those matched the claim number and date found in the metal box. Elaine's settlement showed Bright Steps paid wages and overtime the company had withheld. Her original accident log copy contradicted the rewritten ledger. The records did not show that Elaine had been paid to invent a story. They showed Constance had used a genuine employment dispute to remove a witness while rewriting the accident account herself. The financial documents from the present were simpler. 4 days after receiving Natalie's civil demand letter, Constance transferred $250,000 from a personal brokerage account into an escrow account connected to the house Kelsey and Ryan had planned to buy. The civil complaint had not yet been filed when she made the transfer, but she already knew I intended to seek damages. The escrow company later froze the money after receiving notice of the dispute. The transfer did not prove Constance planned the wedding attack. It did establish that the promised house money was real, and that Kelsey had a direct financial interest in keeping the Bright Steps sale alive. Kelsey had not aimed at me only because our mother wanted obedience. She had believed the sale would purchase the life she wanted. My father requested a private meeting after learning the letter had been produced. Natalie arranged it in her office and attended with me. Douglas arrived without Constance. He looked older than he had at the wedding, but I refused to mistake physical exhaustion for accountability. He stared at the letter on the table. "I wrote that when I was terrified," he said. You were not too terrified to sign the insurance statement. His eyes lowered. I thought the center would close. So you blamed a 9-year-old. I told myself you would recover. I did not recover from being told I caused it. I know that now. No, you knew it then. It is in your letter. Douglas pressed both hands together. I was weak. That word does not explain what you did. It only describes how you want me to judge you. He looked toward Natalie. Can I speak to my daughter alone? No, I answered before Natalie needed to. His mouth tightened. I came to tell you I am sorry. Then give a sworn statement. He looked back at me. Turn over every device and account you used for Bright Steps. Tell Detective Ortiz what you knew about the wedding cannon. Explain why you denied seeing the black bag under the head table. This is about what happened when you were a child. It stopped being only about childhood when you lied to the detective. He shook his head. If I give them everything, your mother could go to prison. She will not be punished because you finally hand me a letter. She will be judged for what she chose to do at the wedding and afterward. Meredith, she is still your mother, and I am still the daughter she targeted. He began to cry then, quietly and without drama. Years earlier, that might have changed the conversation. I would have tried to make his guilt easier to carry because he was the parent who rarely shouted. I no longer confused quietness with innocence. I cannot undo what I did, he said. No, you can only decide whether you are going to continue doing it. He left without agreeing to a sworn statement. The forensic report arrived the next week. After the police sent official preservation requests and Natalie sent the civil preservation notice, someone had deleted local email folders and sale documents from a Bright Steps office computer. The deletion occurred on May 1st. The provider had already preserved cloud copies, so the files were not lost. The office administrator's login had been used. But security footage placed Douglas at the computer during the relevant period. His phone contained a message from Constance sent minutes earlier. Clear the old local folders before outsiders start pulling things out of context. Douglas replied, I am doing it now. The report did not transform every deleted file into a separate crime. In the civil case, it supported sanctions for destroying evidence after notice. In the criminal investigation, it showed that Douglas's false claim of knowing nothing was not passive confusion. He had removed evidence when I was 9. He had tried to remove data again when I was 38. The man who had spent his life calling himself neutral had chosen the same side twice. Detective Ortiz interviewed him again. This time, the preserved cloud files, security video, and message from Constance were placed in front of him. Douglas admitted deleting the local folders. He claimed he believed the records were duplicates and said Constance only wanted to protect private business information. He still refused to describe himself as someone helping conceal evidence. The words mattered less than the record. Natalie explained that his greatest present exposure came from the materially false statements he had made to Detective Ortiz, together with his deletion of data after official preservation requests. My father had wanted to trade a private confession for my forgiveness. Instead, he had created a public trail of continued choices. The family structure began to fracture shortly afterward. Kelsey's new attorney formally requested a proffer meeting with the prosecutor. It meant she was willing to provide information in hopes of negotiating how her cooperation and responsibility would be handled. I was not permitted to attend. I was not allowed to direct the questions, reject her answers, or approve any agreement. Part of me hated that. Another part understood that justice could not depend on whether I personally felt satisfied in every room. Natalie told me only what the prosecutor had authorized her to share. Kelsey says she has more than messages, she said. What kind of evidence? A recording. From the wedding? From before it. I removed my glasses and leaned closer, though seeing Natalie more clearly did not change the meaning. Who recorded it? Kelsey did. She says she activated a voice memo while speaking directly with Constance in the bridal suite. Her phone automatically uploaded it to her cloud account. Why would she record her own mother? She has not explained that in detail yet. Does Constance know it exists? According to Kelsey, no. I thought of the bride who had raised the cannon toward my face, already knowing which eye she had been told to target. Kelsey was not becoming innocent. Cooperation could not erase the choice she had made. But for the first time, she was preparing to enter a room where Constance would not be beside her, correcting the story before anyone else could hear it. What is on the recording? I asked. Natalie closed the file in front of her. The prosecutor has not released the full contents to us yet. She paused. But Kelsey says it captured your mother explaining exactly what to do if the cannon hurt you more than they intended. I did not hear Kelsey's recording the day she offered it to the prosecutor. For nearly 2 weeks, the file remained with investigators while they verified the phone, the cloud account, the time it had been created, and whether anyone had edited it after the wedding. Kelsey surrendered the original device and her login information through her attorney. A forensic examiner confirmed that the voice memo had been created in the bridal suite on the morning of the wedding and uploaded automatically minutes later. Natalie reminded me that I was not entitled to sit inside Kelsey's proffer meeting or direct the prosecutor's decisions. What can they tell me? I asked. Only what does not interfere with the investigation or future testimony. So Kelsey gets to tell her version privately. She gets to provide information under conditions set by the prosecutor. That is not the same as controlling the outcome. I understood the distinction. I still disliked being outside a room where my sister was finally explaining how she had helped plan an attack on me. When Natalie called me into her office, she had permission to summarize the portions relevant to my safety and the charges under consideration. Kelsey admitted that our mother selected the silver mark on the ballroom floor because the lighting and camera angle were best there. She admitted Constance told her to stand close enough that I would feel the pressure from the cannon before I understood what was happening. She admitted they chose my left eye because it already bothered me under bright lights. Most importantly, Kelsey did not claim she had been forced. She told the prosecutor she wanted the house money, Natalie said. She was angry that your records request might interfere with the Bright Steps sale, and she believed you were choosing the weeks before her wedding to reopen the past. I did not know about the sale. She acknowledges that now. Did she think I was lying about the old injury? She says she knew the official story was probably false. She convinced herself that the truth no longer mattered because you had built a life anyway. That sentence hurt differently than the accusation itself. My sister had looked at my career, my home, and the fact that I could function with an injured eye, and decided those things erased what our family had done. My survival had become their excuse for never repairing the damage. What did she say the prank was supposed to accomplish? I asked. To make you cry, resist her, and look unstable on camera. The edited footage would be posted if you raised questions about the old accident or the business sale. And if I had not reacted? Kelsey says Constance told her you would. The voice memo proved it. Detective Ortiz and the prosecutor allowed Natalie to play an authenticated working copy for me. Dana sat beside me. We listened through speakers in Natalie's conference room, while the original file remained in evidence. At first, the recording contained ordinary bridal suite noise. Fabric moved. A drawer opened. Someone walked across the room in hard-soled shoes. Then Kelsey spoke. Which one am I using? My mother answered. The one with the silver tape. The venue poppers are too weak. Kelsey asked. How close? 3 feet, maybe closer if she steps back. There was a pause. What if it actually hurts her? My mother's voice remained calm. Her left eye is sensitive. That is why she will react. She will cover it, and you pull her hand down before she has time to think. Kelsey gave a nervous laugh. That sounds awful. It sounds awful because you are imagining it instead of remembering what she is like. She will make a scene whether it hurts or not. I closed my right hand around the arm of the chair. The recording continued. Kelsey asked what she should say afterward. My mother replied, call it a harmless prank. Say she ruined your wedding because she could not stand seeing you happy. The photographer starts after the cannon goes off, so all anyone will see is Meredith grabbing you. What about Ryan? He will believe his wife on his wedding day. Kelsey was quiet for several seconds. Then she said, and if she goes to the hospital? My mother answered more softly. Then you say you picked the cannon yourself and had no idea it was stronger? You are an adult, Kelsey. I cannot be responsible for every decision you make. The recording ended less than a minute later. Dana turned away from the table. I remained seated, listening to the silence that followed. My mother had told Kelsey exactly how to hurt me, how to create the video, and how to describe me afterward. In the same conversation, she had warned Kelsey that she would deny responsibility if the injury became serious. Kelsey had heard all of it. She still took the cannon. She knew our mother might abandon her, I said. Natalie nodded. The recording suggests that possibility was clear. And she did it anyway. Yes, that was the part I refused to let disappear beneath the revelation about Constance. Kelsey had not walked blindly into a trap. She had heard the warning, understood the plan, and decided the money and public humiliation were worth the risk. The prosecutor later showed Kelsey another message during the proffer. It had been recovered from the preserved account my parents shared. My mother sent it to Douglas several days before the wedding. If Kelsey takes it too far, we say she acted alone. She wanted the prank. We never approved it. Douglas answered, "She will never forgive us." My mother replied, "She will need us when the house money is gone." Kelsey had spent her life believing she was protected because she was loved more than I was. The message forced her to see the bargain beneath that protection. She was valuable to Constance when she was obedient, photogenic, and useful. If the plan succeeded, Kelsey would receive a house. If it failed, she would become the only person blamed. The golden child had never been safe. She had only been profitable. Kelsey agreed to plead guilty to a lesser felony wounding charge and to making a materially false statement to investigators. The prosecutor would tell the judge that she cooperated, surrendered the recording, and agreed to testify truthfully against Constance. The agreement still required real punishment. Kelsey accepted 6 months of active confinement, supervised probation, restitution, and no contact with me except through attorneys. She also agreed that restitution paid in the criminal case would be credited against overlapping damages in the civil case. Natalie asked whether I wanted to submit my position before the agreement was finalized. "I will not ask them to reduce it further," I said. "You can object. Will an objection erase the recording or make a stronger case against Constance?" "No." "Then I will not oppose an agreement that requires Kelsey to plead guilty, serve time, pay restitution, and testify under oath." I did not forgive her. I made a decision based on what the evidence could accomplish. Kelsey's attorney sent a letter through Natalie. I read it once. She wrote that our mother had taught her to see me as a threat to every good thing in her life. She said she had spent years believing I was strong enough to survive whatever the family placed on me. The letter ended with a sentence I respected more than the apology around it. "Mom taught me how to justify what I did. I still chose to do it." I did not respond. An accurate confession did not create an obligation to rebuild the relationship. Ryan continued living separately from Kelsey. By October, they had signed a separation agreement covering their rented apartment, savings, debts, and personal property. They had no children, no house, and no long-term support claim. After 6 uninterrupted months apart, Ryan filed for a no-fault divorce. The decree was completed in January of the following year. He told me the news during a meeting at Natalie's office, where he delivered records from the cloud account he had shared with Kelsey. "I should have questioned more before the wedding," he said. "You did not know the plan." I knew there was tension. I accepted Kelsey's explanation because it was easier. "That is something you have to live with. It is not something I can resolve for you." He nodded. "I am not asking you to." I thanked him for preserving the files and for giving truthful statements. I did not tell him he had done everything right. I did not offer to remain in his life after the case ended. Helping expose the truth did not entitle him to closeness with me. My father changed his position after learning that Kelsey had accepted a plea. Douglas contacted Detective Ortiz through his attorney and offered a sworn statement. He admitted that Kelsey held the launcher during the childhood accident. He admitted Constance wrote the false account, and he removed the device before anyone independent could examine it. He also admitted seeing the black bag beneath the head table on the wedding day. He had lied when he told investigators he knew nothing about the cannon. In his statement, Douglas said Constance instructed him to delete local Bright Steps files after the official preservation requests arrived. He acknowledged using the administrator's login and falsely describing the deletion as ordinary cleanup. The prosecutor considered his cooperation when evaluating the false statements he had made. He was not promised immunity. Douglas asked to meet me after signing. I agreed only with Natalie present. He looked thinner, and the confidence had gone out of his posture. He placed a copy of the sworn statement on the table as if it were an offering. "I told them everything I could remember," he said. "You told them what they could already prove. I also admitted things they did not know. That gives the statement value." He looked at me with hope I did not intend to encourage. "Does it change anything between us?" "It changes the record. I mean, as your father. You stopped acting as my father when protecting me became inconvenient. Telling the truth now does not restore the years you chose otherwise. His face tightened. I know I do not deserve forgiveness. That is another way of asking me to discuss forgiveness. He lowered his eyes. I did not insult him or raise my voice. I told him the only thing I was prepared to give. Your statement matters. It may prevent Constance from doing this to someone else, but you do not get to use it as a ticket back into my life. Douglas left with his attorney. The criminal case against Constance continued to grow. The prosecutor offered her a plea that would have reduced her exposure, avoided a public trial, and resolved the major charges with a shorter recommended sentence. She would still lose control of Bright Steps, pay restitution, and face consequences for hiding the cannon and directing the attack. Her attorney urged her to consider it. Constance refused. I learned about her decision during a pretrial hearing several months later. She sat beside her defense attorneys in a dark navy suit, her hair arranged exactly as it had been for every Bright Steps licensing photograph. She looked composed enough to make strangers wonder whether the charges had been exaggerated. Her attorney told the judge that Constance maintained her innocence and wanted a jury trial. The judge asked whether she understood the possible consequences of rejecting the agreement. I understand, my mother said. Her voice carried through the courtroom. Then she looked directly at me. I want a jury to hear the truth about what kind of daughter Meredith has always been. One of her attorneys touched her arm. But the words were already part of the record. For almost 30 years, Constance had survived by speaking first. She decided what happened, who was unstable, who deserved protection, and what everyone else was allowed to remember. Even after Kelsey's recording, Douglas's statement, the canon, the receipt, the medical evidence, and the messages, she still believed confidence could overpower facts. I watched her turn back toward the judge. This time, my mother would tell her story in a room where every sentence had evidence standing beside it. The judge decided how much of my childhood the jury would be allowed to hear before any juror entered the courtroom. Constance's attorneys wanted the entire 1994 incident excluded. They argued that it was too old, too emotional, and too likely to make the jury punish my mother for something that had never resulted in criminal charges. The prosecutor did not ask to retry the first injury. She asked to use only the parts that explained the current one. My mother knew my left eye had been permanently damaged as a child. She had helped create the false story that I caused that injury myself. She purchased the new Canon 2 days after learning I had requested the old records. At the wedding, she told Kelsey to use the same eye. After I was hurt, she immediately repeated the same accusation she had used when I was 9. I was jealous, unstable, and creating an injury for attention. The judge listened without expression while both sides argued. I sat behind the prosecutor with Natalie beside me. My left eye had healed enough that I no longer needed the clear protective shield, but the courtroom lights scattered into pale streaks unless I wore filtered lenses. The judge finally ruled that the jury could hear limited evidence about the childhood incident. They could learn that my left eye had an old injury, that Constance knew about it, that the original accident record had been changed, and that Douglas's letter contradicted the family's public account. The evidence could be used to explain knowledge, motive, intent, and why the wedding injury was unlikely to be an innocent accident. The prosecutor could not ask the jury to convict my mother for what happened when I was 9. The judge also warned both sides that the trial would not become a general evaluation of whether our family had been loving, unfair, or dysfunctional. This case concerns charged conduct in 2023, she said. The older evidence will be limited to its proper purpose. I was relieved, not because the past mattered less, but because I no longer wanted the entire case to depend on proving every missing second of it. The current attack had its own receipt, messages, footage, witnesses, medical records, and hidden device. The childhood lie explained the plan. It did not have to carry the plan by itself. Outside the courtroom, one of Constance's attorneys approached Natalie with a new civil settlement proposal. The insurer covering part of Hale Early Learning's liability had agreed to contribute. Constance would also pay from personal funds. The amount covered my past medical bills, projected follow-up care, lost income, reduced earning capacity, and a separate payment for the permanent visual defect and emotional harm. It was the first offer that treated my injury as permanent rather than temporary discomfort. I did not reject it. Natalie and I spent several hours reviewing the language line by line. The draft allowed me to cooperate with police, testify under subpoena, communicate with medical providers, and answer government agencies. It did not ask me to hide evidence or obstruct the licensing investigation. The problem appeared in a paragraph labeled Mutual Public Statements. I would agree not to describe the wedding incident as planned or intentional. Constance would remain free to call it a family misunderstanding caused by Kelsey's unauthorized prank and my unusually severe medical reaction. They are paying for silence without using the word silence, I said. Natalie nodded. They have included the legal carve-outs. But this clause gives Constance control of the public description. She could continue saying Kelsey acted alone. Yes. She could say my eye overreacted. In less direct language, yes. And if I corrected her, they could accuse me of violating the agreement. That is how I read it. I looked at the settlement amount again. It was substantial. Refusing it would not make my treatment cheaper. It would not restore the portion of vision I had lost. I was not interested in sacrificing financial security to perform moral purity for people who would never pay my bills. Counter it, I said. Keep the compensation structure. Credit any criminal restitution, so I am not paid twice for the same expenses. Allow both sides to say the matter was resolved. But neither side gets to contradict the official record or blame the victim. Natalie drafted the response. Constance rejected it within a day. Her attorney explained that she would not agree to language that prevented her from defending her reputation. That ended the negotiation. My mother had been willing to pay for my injury. She was not willing to surrender ownership of the story. The next attack arrived through the family group chat. An old audio clip appeared with no date and almost no context. My voice could be heard telling Kelsey, "I won't protect you when this falls apart." Several relatives shared it with comments about my bitterness. One wrote that I had obviously wanted my sister's wedding and marriage to fail long before the Cannon incident. The full conversation came from 8 months before the wedding. Kelsey had called to ask whether I would co-sign a mortgage application. She and Ryan wanted to make an offer on a house before receiving the money Constance had promised from the Bright Step sale. I refused. Kelsey accused me of being jealous because she was getting married and buying a home while I lived alone. I told her she should not sign a loan based on money that did not exist yet. When she demanded that I promise to help if the sale was delayed, I answered, "I won't protect you when this falls apart. Do not borrow against a promise and expect me to rescue you." The complete recording had been saved automatically in an old voicemail archive because Kelsey left part of the argument as a message after I ended the call. Ryan also had texts from the same day discussing the mortgage. Natalie issued one statement. The excerpt circulating online concerned Meredith Hale's refusal to co-sign a speculative home loan. The full dated communication and related messages have been preserved for trial. It did not concern the wedding, the marriage, or any wish that either would fail. I did not post the complete recording. The courtroom would receive the authenticated version. Social media would only turn it into another competition between edited clips. Dana wanted to know how I stayed quiet while strangers repeated the accusation. "I am not quiet," I told her. "I am speaking where evidence has consequences." That did not mean the smear campaign stopped hurting. Former patients saw the posts. A local parent wrote to my clinic asking whether I was emotionally stable enough to work with people recovering from vision loss. My supervisor did not suspend me or ask me to explain family gossip. She reviewed my medical restrictions, confirmed that no patient complaint existed, and approved a gradual return to work. By then, I could read enlarged text for short periods. My left eye still carried a pale missing area near the center, and bright rooms exhausted me faster than they once had. I returned 3 mornings a week. My office looked different after the accommodations. The overhead lights remained off. A filtered lamp sat beside my monitor. The screen displayed larger letters with increased contrast, and a timer reminded me to rest my eyes before fatigue became pain. On my 2nd week back, I worked with a woman recovering from a retinal procedure. She was afraid that using her remaining vision would somehow damage it further. "Were you scared to come back here after your own injury?" she asked. She had noticed the lenses and the way I angled documents toward my right eye. "Yes," I said. "What made you do it?" I stopped treating adaptation like surrender. I showed her how to position a reading guide beneath a line of text. I did not tell her about Kelsey or the courtroom. She did not need my family's story. She needed proof that a changed method could still lead to an independent life. When she read an entire paragraph without losing her place, she smiled. That moment mattered more than any message in the family chat. My life had not paused to become a case file. While I returned to work, the Virginia Department of Education held a separate administrative hearing concerning Bright Steps. The licensing process did not decide whether Constance was criminally guilty. It considered whether she could safely continue controlling a childcare operation and its records while serious allegations were pending. The department reviewed the two versions of the childhood accident log. The receipt showing the business card had been used to purchase the wedding cannon, the disclosure warranty in the sale documents, and evidence that local files had been deleted after official preservation requests. Constance's attorney argued that the cannon had been purchased for a private wedding, not for use at Bright Steps. He said the old accident record was unreliable, and that removing her would harm employees, parents, and children who had no connection to our family dispute. The department did not close the center. Instead, the superintendent issued a notice of summary suspension against Constance's authority to manage licensed operations while the full revocation proceeding continued. An independent administrator took control of daily safety records, staffing, parent communication, and regulatory compliance. The teachers remained employed. Families were notified that management had changed temporarily, not that the center was disappearing overnight. My mother told relatives I had taken her life's work away from her. I had not issued the suspension. I had not selected the administrator. I had not written the altered accident report or purchased a dangerous device with the company card. The department acted because the person controlling a childcare center's safety records was accused of rewriting one injury report, buying the instrument used in another injury, and directing someone to delete records afterward. The regional operator that had planned to buy Bright Steps formally canceled the closing. Its notice cited the pending criminal case, the suspension of current management, possible breach of the disclosure warranty, and the material change in the business's legal risk. The employees continued working under temporary administration. The sale price did not go to Constance. The $250,000 in the frozen escrow account remained disputed. The collapse she had tried to blame on my records request came from her own signatures, purchases, messages, and instructions. Trial preparation began several weeks later. The prosecutor met with each witness separately. I was not allowed to coordinate stories with Elliot, Elaine, Ryan, Douglas, or Kelsey. That separation protected all of us. Elliot practiced explaining why he carried the camera, where he stood, how the file had been copied, and why the original memory card remained unchanged. The prosecutor warned him that the defense would focus on the fact that he laughed when the cannon fired. He did not try to hide it. "I laughed because the room told me it was funny," he said during one preparation session I later learned about through his testimony review. Then I looked at Meredith instead of the crowd. That honesty made him a better witness than pretending he had recognized the attack instantly. Elaine prepared to explain the old accident log and the settlement payment. The defense would say she was a disgruntled former employee who kept stolen business records for revenge. She would answer that Constance withheld wages, that the settlement paid money already owed, and that she copied the log because she feared the entry would be changed. Douglas prepared with his own attorney. His cooperation did not erase the false statements or the deletion of local files. The prosecutor expected the defense to portray him as a weak husband, inventing accusations to reduce his own exposure. Kelsey would testify under the terms of her plea agreement. The jury would hear that she expected a reduced sentence because she cooperated. They would also hear that she had pleaded guilty, accepted confinement, and admitted she personally aimed and fired the cannon. The prosecutor prepared me last. She placed copies of the edited wedding clip, the old family photographs, the mortgage message, and my medical diagrams on the table. "The defense will try to make you explain your entire family history," she said. "You do not have to accept the premise of every question. What if they ask whether I hated Kelsey? Tell the truth. I did not hate her before the wedding. Then say that. I resented her. Say that if asked. I thought she benefited from our mother's favoritism. That is not a crime, and pretending otherwise will make you less credible. She asked me whether I knew exactly what happened at the open house when I was 9. No. What do you know? I know I did not fire the launcher at myself. The original log, Elaine's account, Kelsey's email, and Douglas's letter support that. I cannot describe every second from my own memory. She nodded. What did Constance intend at the wedding? To create a public reaction she could use against me. Did she intend permanent damage? I cannot know her private thoughts. I know she bought the high-pressure cannon, covered the warning, selected my injured eye, instructed Kelsey to stand close, told her to pull my hand down, and planned a story in case I went to the hospital. That was the difference between precision and overreach. Earlier in my life, I believed being believed required me to answer every question with complete certainty. Now I understood that the strongest testimony often included the limits of what I knew. The prosecutor told me not to argue with defense counsel, even when a question was insulting. You answer the question that was asked, she said. Then stop. I am good at answering questions. You are also good at adding 6 facts after the answer, because you want no misunderstanding. She was right. Silence after a complete answer is not surrender, she added. I practiced until I could say, I do not know, without feeling that I had handed my mother a victory. 2 days before jury selection, the defense filed its final witness list. Natalie and I reviewed it in her office. Most names were expected: the venue photographer, family members who would describe my childhood temperament, a business consultant involved in the Bright Steps sale, and an expert prepared to argue that the cannon's exact pressure could not be reconstructed after use. The last name made Natalie stop. Constance Hale. She is testifying? I asked. Her attorneys notified the court that she intends to. I thought defendants usually avoid that. They often do because cross-examination opens risks they cannot control. Then why would her attorneys agree? They may not agree. The decision is hers. I looked at my mother's name. For 3 decades, Constance had won every family conflict by controlling the room. She interrupted, reframed, changed the subject, ended phone calls, and told other people what they remembered before they found the courage to disagree. On the witness stand, she would not be allowed to walk away when a question became dangerous. She could not order the prosecutor to stop. She could not delete the next question. She could not answer the same I with a family speech and expect everyone else to remain silent. My mother believed her public mask was stronger than the evidence. Soon, she would have to test that belief under oath. The first witness did not enter the courtroom looking like the man who would destroy my mother's defense. Elliot Vance wore an ordinary gray suit and carried no camera. The original device and memory card had already been admitted through the evidence technician who examined them. Elliot's job was narrower. He had to explain why the camera existed, where he had stood, and what he had personally seen. He told the jury about his wife's surgery and her disappointment at missing Ryan's wedding. He had promised to record the speeches, the dancing, and the small moments the official photographer might overlook. That is why the camera was already running, the prosecutor said. Yes. Did anyone ask you to record Meredith Hale? No. Did Meredith know you had captured the incident? Not until 3 days later. The prosecutor played a short section from before the cannon fired. The screen showed guests crossing the ballroom while Elliot's camera moved behind Kelsey's shoulder. The time code advanced without a break. He identified my mother carrying the black bag. He identified the venue employee offering her a paper popper. He identified the silver-wrapped cannon when Constance removed it from the bag. Then he described the service hallway. I saw Mrs. Hale put the cannon under the linens, he said. I told the venue manager what I had seen. We photographed the cart before anything was moved. On cross-examination, Constance's attorney stood slowly, as though he had found the weakness that would erase everything Elliot said. You laughed when the cannon fired, didn't you? Yes. The answer came without delay. You believed it was funny. For the first second or two, I believed it was a wedding prank. You continued recording instead of helping. I lowered the camera when I realized Meredith was hurt. Other people were already calling for medical assistance. You touched the evidence bag. I carried the sealed bag beside the venue manager when we delivered it. I did not open it, seal it, or remove the cannon. You are Ryan Mercer's uncle. You wanted to help him in his divorce. My nephew was not discussing divorce when I reviewed the footage. The attorney tried to make Elliot defensive. He refused the invitation. I laughed because everyone around me laughed, he said. Then I looked at Meredith instead of the crowd. The jury heard the flaw in his behavior and the reason he changed it. His honesty gave the defense nothing else to expose. Aaron Mills, the venue manager, testified next. He brought inventory sheets, showing the number and type of indoor paper poppers issued that afternoon. Every venue device had a cream label, a lightweight cardboard body, and instructions to point it above shoulder level. The cannon recovered from the service cart was longer, heavier, and wrapped with silver tape. Did Willowmere Conservatory provide that item? The prosecutor asked. No. Did any employee approve its use? No. Who sealed it after the incident? I did while my assistant watched. Aaron explained the photographs, the numbered tamper strip, the locked security cabinet, and the access log. The defense suggested 3 days inside a venue gave someone time to replace the cannon. Aaron opened the log. The security room recorded every card entry, he said. The hallway camera also faced the door. No one accessed the cabinet between the night supervisor's inspection and the morning I removed the sealed bag. The device expert did not call the cannon a weapon designed to blind someone. He described exactly what it was: a compressed outdoor celebration cannon. Its label warned users not to aim it at people and to maintain a safe distance. Silver tape covered most of that warning. The model produced more force than the paper poppers distributed by the venue. At approximately 3 feet, fired horizontally toward a face. Would that comply with the manufacturer's instructions? The prosecutor asked. No. Can you determine the exact pressure produced at the wedding? Not after discharge. So you cannot tell this jury precisely how much force struck Meredith Hale. That is correct. My mother's attorney smiled at the concession. Then the prosecutor showed the fragments removed from beneath my eyelid. The hospital nurse had labeled the specimen container, and the evidence technician had documented the transfer. The expert explained that the polymer, metallic coating, color, and thickness were consistent with the material recovered inside the cannon. Is that an individual match? The prosecutor asked. No. I cannot say one specific piece came from this specific tube to the exclusion of every identical product. But are the samples consistent with each other? Yes. The prosecutor never asked the evidence to promise more than it could prove. My ophthalmologist testified without displaying the most disturbing medical photographs. He used a diagram of the eye and explained the corneal abrasion, traumatic inflammation, blood inside the front chamber, and retinal impact that caused the permanent defect near the center of my vision. Was this temporary discomfort? The prosecutor asked. No. Did Miss Hale lose all vision in the eye? No. Most functional vision returned. What remained? A small paracentral blind area, reduced contrast under low light, sensitivity to glare, and a need for long-term monitoring because trauma can produce later complications. He explained why covering the eye without pressing it had been appropriate. Until doctors excluded an open globe injury, rubbing or applying force could have worsened the damage. What risk was created when someone tried to pull her protective hand away? It could have exposed the eye to more contact or caused her to press against it while resisting. The defense asked whether my childhood scar made the eye unusually vulnerable. It had an old injury, he said. So an ordinary party prank produced an extraordinary result because of her pre-existing condition. The device was fired directly at the injured eye from close range. I would not describe that use as ordinary. Elaine Porter carried her original photocopy of the accident log inside a clear evidence sleeve. She explained that she had been 24, underpaid, and afraid of losing both her job and her apartment. She admitted taking a copy of a workplace record without permission. She admitted signing a settlement agreement and leaving Bright Steps. Constance's attorney focused on the payment. You accepted money from my client. I accepted wages she had withheld and a small severance. You signed an agreement not to damage the center's reputation. Yes. And almost 30 years later, after learning Meredith was suing, you produced a document that damages that reputation. I produced the document because it shows what was written before Constance changed it. The prosecutor placed the two versions side by side. Elaine identified the line she had written, Kelsey holding launcher near celebration table. The altered version said I seized the launcher during a tantrum. The yellow table photograph appeared on the screen. It showed me across the table, with paper plates and Kelsey beside the red tube. The prosecutor did not claim the image captured the discharge. "What does this photograph establish?" she asked Elaine. "Where we were shortly before the accident. Does it show who fired?" "No." "Did you personally see the exact instant the launcher discharged?" "No." "What did you see?" Kelsey had it in her hands. "I turned when a tray fell. Then I heard it fire and saw Meredith go down." "What did Kelsey say afterward?" "She kept crying that she had not meant to hit her." My father entered the courtroom after Elaine. Douglas looked toward me once before taking the oath. I did not return the gesture. He admitted writing the letter found in the gray box. He admitted Kelsey held the launcher in 1994, that I had not fired it at myself, and that Constance created the version sent to the insurer. "What did you do with the device?" the prosecutor asked. "I removed it from the center and disposed of it." "Why?" "Constance believed the center could lose its license." "And what did you believe?" "That we could lose our business and our home." "Did that make the statement true?" "No." The prosecutor moved to the wedding. Douglas admitted seeing the black bag beneath the head table. He admitted lying when Detective Ortiz asked whether Constance brought the cannon. He admitted deleting local business folders after receiving official preservation requests. The defense tried to turn him into a desperate husband, blaming his wife to save himself. "You face consequences for your own false statements, correct?" "Yes." "You hope the prosecutor will treat you more favorably." "I hope they consider that I eventually told the truth." "After the files were recovered, the video was found, and your letter was produced." "Yes." Douglas looked smaller with each honest answer. That did not make him heroic. It made the scale of his delay visible. Kelsey entered in a plain dark dress without her wedding ring. The prosecutor began by asking about her plea. She admitted she had pleaded guilty, would serve active confinement, pay restitution, remain under supervision, and testify truthfully. "You hope your cooperation reduces your sentence," Constance's attorney said during cross-examination. "Yes." "So blaming your mother benefits you." "Telling the truth benefits me more than continuing the lie." "You were the adult who held the cannon." "Yes." "You aimed it." "Yes." "You fired it." "Yes." "You grabbed Meredith's wrist." "Yes." "And no one physically forced you." "No one forced me." The courtroom became so quiet that I could hear the ventilation above us. Kelsey told the jury she knew the family's childhood story was probably false. She knew my left eye had been damaged. She knew Constance wanted a dramatic reaction before the Bright Step sale closed. "Why did you agree?" the prosecutor asked. "I wanted the money for our house. I was angry that Meredith's records request might interfere with the sale. I told myself she would cry, yell at me, and then recover." "Did your mother teach you how to aim?" "She told me to stand close and use the left eye." "Did that remove your choice?" "No." The prosecutor played the bridal suite recording. My mother's voice filled the courtroom. "The one with the silver tape. The venue poppers are too weak." Then Kelsey asked what would happen if the cannon actually hurt me. "Her left eye is sensitive. That is why she will react." Several jurors looked toward Constance. The recording continued until my mother told Kelsey that if I went to the hospital, she should say she had chosen the cannon alone. Kelsey kept her eyes on the prosecutor. "Why did you preserve that recording?" she was asked. "Because I had started recording conversations with my mother about money. She often denied promises later. I forgot the voice memo was still running after we discussed the house." "Did you listen to it before firing the cannon?" "I remembered the conversation. I did not need the recording to know what she said." When it was my turn, I walked to the witness stand without looking at my family. I described the silver mark, the cannon rising, the white burst across my sight, and Kelsey's fingers closing around my wrist. I explained why I protected my eye and asked for emergency services. The prosecutor asked about my recovery and the adjustments at work. I did not describe myself as destroyed. I explained what had changed. On cross-examination, the defense played the edited wedding clip. It showed me holding Kelsey's arm while guests backed away. "You appear angry," the attorney said. "I was injured, and she was trying to pull my hand away." He played the old message in which I said I would not protect Kelsey when everything fell apart. "You wanted her life to collapse?" That conversation concerned a mortgage she wanted me to co-sign. You resented your sister. Yes. He seemed surprised. You admit that. I resented the favoritism and the financial demands. Resentment did not purchase a cannon in my mother's name. You were angry about the Bright Steps sale. I became angry after I learned my injury had been used to support false business records. I did not know a sale existed when I requested my medical history. You have spent years accusing your family over an accident you cannot remember. I spent years questioning a story their own documents contradicted. Can you tell this jury exactly who moved first when you were 9? No. Can you describe every second before that launcher fired? No. So you do not actually know what happened. I know I did not fire it at myself. I do not claim to remember what the evidence cannot establish. He waited, perhaps expecting me to continue defending myself. I stopped. Constance took the stand on the 4th day. She spoke warmly about building Bright Steps from a small home program into a respected center. She described herself as a mother trying to protect 2 daughters with very different emotional needs. Kelsey made a terrible decision, she said. I did not tell her to hurt Meredith. She claimed she purchased the cannon because Kelsey wanted a dramatic photograph. She covered the label because the silver tape matched the wedding decorations. She said, the same eye. Only because I had always covered my left eye when I became upset. The prosecutor approached with the receipt. You bought the cannon 2 days after Meredith requested the old records. Yes. A coincidence? A wedding was approaching. You charged it to Hale Early Learning. It was an administrative mistake. You rejected the venue's safer popper. I wanted the photograph to look better. You told Kelsey the venue devices were too weak. I meant visually unimpressive. The prosecutor displayed the warning beneath the tape. You covered the instruction not to aim at a person. I did not read every word. You knew enough to tell Kelsey how close to stand. I was arranging a photograph. The footage showed Constance hiding the cannon beneath the linens. Why conceal it? I was clearing the ballroom. You looked over both shoulders. I was surrounded by chaos. The prosecutor displayed the message to Douglas. If Kelsey takes it too far, we say she acted alone. Constance blamed Douglas for misunderstanding her. She blamed Kelsey for being reckless. She blamed Elliot for recording a private conversation. She blamed the venue for failing to stop the photograph. Finally, she blamed me. Meredith has used that eye to control this family since childhood, she said. Every celebration becomes about her pain. The prosecutor stopped moving. When Meredith covered her eye at the wedding, why did you tell Kelsey to pull her hand down? To stop another performance. You knew before the cannon fired that she would cover that specific eye. She always does. Why purchase a stronger device after she requested records about that eye? I had a wedding, a family, and a business to protect. I could not let one child destroy everything again. The prosecutor allowed the sentence to remain in the room. Then she asked, which child? Constance opened her mouth. If she said Kelsey, she would admit she had feared Kelsey's actions before the wedding. If she said me, she would reveal that she still viewed an injured 9-year-old as the person who threatened everything. I meant the situation, she said. That was not my question. Her attorney objected. The judge overruled him. The prosecutor repeated it. Which child were you protecting the family and business from? My mother looked toward the jury, searching for the room she had always been able to control. She did not find it. Closing arguments ended the next afternoon. The prosecutor told the jury the case was not about deciding whether our family had been kind or cruel. It was about recorded choices. Buying the cannon, selecting the eye, arranging the camera angle, ordering Kelsey to pull my hand down, hiding the device, and building a false story before anyone knew how badly I was hurt. The defense asked them to see an exaggerated prank, a bitter sister, a cooperating bride seeking leniency, and witnesses carrying old grievances. The jury left to deliberate. Hours passed. Then the first day ended without a decision. Late the following afternoon, the courtroom deputy entered and spoke quietly to the judge. The jurors had reached a verdict. Everyone stood as they returned. For a moment, I saw my left eye reflected in the black screen beside the witness stand, the pale lens of my glasses covering the small place where vision would never return. Then I turned toward the jury. The foreperson stood with the verdict form held in both hands. On the charge that Constance Hale conspired in the planned wounding at the wedding, the jury found her guilty. They also found her guilty of concealing the canon and obstructing the investigation through false statements and the attempted destruction of records. My mother did not collapse or cry out. She stared at the jurors as if one of them might recognize a mistake and correct it. When none of them looked away, she turned toward her attorneys. The deputies approached after the judge revoked her bond pending sentencing. Only then did Constance look at me. "This is what you wanted," she said. The judge warned her not to address me. I did not answer. Her conviction was not something I had created by wanting it. A receipt, a recording, a canon, altered records, medical evidence, and her own testimony had brought her to that moment. The courtroom emptied slowly. Elliot hugged Ryan in the hallway. Elaine stood against the wall with tears on her face. Douglas remained near his attorney, watching the deputies lead his wife through a secured door. Kelsey was not there. Under the conditions of her plea, she had already begun serving the 6 months of active confinement she accepted for aiming and firing the cannon, lying during the first investigation, and helping create the edited story. Natalie asked whether I wanted to speak to reporters gathered outside. "No, you do not have to. The verdict says enough." Dana drove me home through steady rain. I removed my filtered glasses in the darkened living room and sat beside the window. The lights from passing cars broke into pale streaks across my left eye, but the small blind area remained where it had been since the wedding. The verdict did not restore what I had lost. It did establish who had chosen to take it. Sentencing occurred 2 months later. Before the hearing, the prosecutor asked whether I wanted to submit a victim impact statement. I wrote several drafts and discarded every sentence that sounded like I was asking the judge to punish my mother for all 30 years of our family history. The court could not sentence her for every birthday she had rearranged around Kelsey, every time she called me unstable, or every year Douglas left his letter locked inside a box. The court could sentence her for the choices she made as an adult in 2023. When I stood at the lectern, Constance watched me without expression. "I am not asking this court to punish my mother for what I cannot fully prove from childhood," I said. "I am asking the court to consider what she did when all of us were grown. She bought a dangerous device, chose an eye she knew had been injured before, instructed my sister how to provoke and restrain me, hid the evidence, and created a false story before she knew whether my vision would return." I looked at the judge rather than my mother. For most of my life, my family treated silence as peace. It was not peace. It was protection for the people who caused harm. I am not asking for revenge beyond the law. I am asking for a sentence that makes clear that being someone's mother does not give you ownership of her body, her memory, or the truth. Constance's attorney asked for home confinement. He spoke about her age, the child care center she had built, the employees who depended on her, and the absence of any prior criminal record. The prosecutor reminded the court that Constance had rejected a plea agreement, testified falsely, attempted to shift responsibility onto Kelsey, and continued describing the attack as a misunderstanding even after the recording was authenticated. The judge imposed a sentence that included 20 months of active incarceration, additional suspended time, supervised probation, restitution, and a prohibition against managing or working in a licensed child care program. The restitution covered documented losses, not duplicated by insurance or the later civil judgment. The judge also imposed a no-contact condition while Constance served her sentence, and during the first portion of probation. My mother had entered the courtroom expecting to leave with another version of the story. She left in custody. Kelsey completed her 6-month sentence and began supervised probation. Her cooperation had reduced her punishment, but it did not erase her conviction. The frozen house money was returned to Constance's brokerage account and later became available to satisfy creditors and judgments. Kelsey never received the down payment she had expected. Her divorce from Ryan became final after the required period of separation. They had no children and no house to divide. But the end of the marriage still took months of agreements, filings, and court review. Ryan did not turn his life into a public performance. He moved to another apartment, continued cooperating when requested, and stopped discussing Kelsey with me after the case ended. Kelsey sent one letter through her attorney after completing her sentence. That method complied with the no-contact order because I was allowed to decide whether I wanted to receive it. The letter did not ask me to forgive her. She wrote that she had spent her life believing our mother's approval meant safety. She admitted that she had learned the truth about my childhood injury 8 years before the wedding and chose not to tell me because the lie protected her place in the family. Near the end, she repeated the most honest sentence she had ever given me. Mom taught me how to justify it. I still chose to do it. I placed the letter in the case file. I did not respond. Acknowledging that Kelsey had finally accepted responsibility did not require me to rebuild a relationship with her. Forgiveness was not a reward handed out automatically after someone completed a sentence. Douglas avoided active incarceration after pleading guilty to making materially false statements and violating the official preservation demand. His cooperation, age, and lack of prior convictions resulted in a suspended sentence, supervised probation, financial penalties, and continuing civil responsibility. He separated from Constance before her sentencing. Several relatives assumed that meant I would let him move into my home or return to my life as the gentler parent. I did neither. Douglas rented a small apartment and attended court-ordered counseling. He sent updates through Natalie until I asked him to stop. The last message said he had lost his wife and both daughters because he spent his life refusing to choose sides. That was not entirely true. He had chosen a side every time he signed a false statement, hid a letter, removed evidence, lied to investigators, and deleted files. His mistake was believing a quiet choice did not count. The civil case ended after the criminal trial. The settlement covered my remaining medical expenses, projected eye monitoring, reduced earnings during recovery, legal costs allowed under the agreement, and compensation for the permanent visual defect. Criminal restitution was credited against overlapping losses, so I was not paid twice for the same bills. There was no clause requiring me to describe the attack as an accident. There was no permission for Constance to call me unstable. The official findings remained intact. Bright Steps continued operating under independent management, while the licensing process concluded. Constance's authority was permanently revoked. The original sale disappeared, and Hale Early Learning's assets were eventually transferred at a lower value after liabilities, regulatory costs, and claims had been addressed. The teachers did not lose their jobs because I demanded revenge. Most remained under the new operator. Constance lost the retirement she expected, the sale she had tried to protect, and the institution she had used as proof that she was a model caregiver. I kept the settlement money. I paid the medical bills, replaced the income I had lost, funded future pressure testing and retinal monitoring, and created enough financial stability that no family emergency could force me back into dependence on the trio people who harmed me. I did not donate all of it to prove I was generous. I did not rescue Kelsey from the consequences of losing the house. I did not pay Douglas's rent. My life required resources, and I stopped treating my own security as selfish. My vision stabilized at approximately 20/45 in the left eye with correction. I returned to full-time work gradually, though I continued using filtered lighting, enlarged text, and scheduled breaks. I avoided night driving in unfamiliar areas and carried dark lenses for rooms with harsh lighting. The blind spot never disappeared. It also stopped feeling like the center of my identity. I became better at telling patients that adaptation was not the same as defeat. I no longer spoke from professional training alone. I understood how humiliating it could feel to need a different light, more time, or someone else behind the wheel. I also learned to accept help without handing over my decisions. Dana drove me when my eye was fatigued. Natalie handled legal questions I was not qualified to answer. Doctors decided what my retina required. I listened, delegated, and still remained responsible for my boundaries. Nearly 3 years have passed since the wedding. By the time Constance completed the active part of her sentence, the first no-contact period had expired. Her probation officer approved a permanent mailing address, but neither Douglas nor Kelsey allowed her to live with them. She moved into a small apartment outside Richmond. 2 weeks after her release, an envelope arrived at my townhouse. My name was written in the same rounded handwriting that had appeared on the flowers she sent after the wedding. The envelope did not violate the remaining conditions of her probation, but that did not mean I was required to open it. Through the paper, I could feel several folded pages. In one visible line near the edge, she had written, "I have no one left." For years, that sentence would have reached the part of me trained to become responsible for her loneliness. I would have imagined an older woman sitting alone and wondered whether protecting myself made me cruel. I did not wonder anymore. Constance had not lost everyone because I refused to forgive her. She lost people one decision at a time, while believing they would always return because she had taught them to fear life without her. I took a pen from the drawer and wrote, "Return to sender" across the envelope. Then I carried it to the mailbox. The afternoon sun was bright, so I wore my filtered glasses. I could see the street clearly with my right eye, and most of it with my left. The small missing place traveled with me, permanent but contained. I placed the letter inside and raised the red flag. When I returned to my house, I locked the door behind me. I did not lock it because I was afraid my mother would come inside. I locked it because the door belonged to me, and for the first time in my life, I understood that no one entered unless I chose to open it. You should never confuse silence with peace or family loyalty with permission to hurt you. When someone harms you, document what happened, seek medical care, preserve messages, and let qualified professionals handle the legal process. Accepting help does not make you weak, and setting boundaries does not make you cruel. You are not responsible for protecting people from consequences they created themselves. Truth may not restore everything you lost, but it can stop the harm from continuing. Choose evidence over arguments, accountability over guilt, and safety over appearances. Subscribe to the channel for more stories about courage, justice, and self-respect.